And we are recording. Hello,
Woohoo!
and welcome to our next interview. Today, I'll be interviewing Kelci Crawford, the great and amazing.
Oh, well, you're just saying that.
Well, first off, what I like to ask everyone, who are you?
Well, I'm a comic artist and character creator. I'm working with two companies right now. One of them is mine. Fantasyville Productions, that one's mine. That's where I make and publish comics. The other company I'm working with is Never Ending. I am the chief creative officer and character designer with Never Ending right now.
Okay. Um, Tell us a little bit about your background.
About like how I got started, you mean?
How you got started? What schools did you go to? If any?
Gotcha. Well, I've always liked drawing since I was wee, but I took my first professional workshop when I was in high school. There was a animation intensive that lasted like 2 weeks that I went and attended, and that was my first taste of working as a professional artist, which was really cool. After that, I went to Bowling Green State University. I was originally looking at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, but Bowling Green State University was just way more affordable and actually allowed me to graduate within 4 years. So I just went there. And also Bowling Green has a learning community called the Arts Village that really resonated with me. It was where all of the creative folks, whether they were art majors or not, it let them live in one dorm building. And there were some classrooms within that dorm building that made it so much easier to take classes like in the same place, which came in really handy because it's situated up by the Toledo neck of the woods. So we would get lake effect snow in the winter. So it was nice to have classes like in the same building where you slept so that you didn't have to like go outside for classes. That was really nice. But yeah, went to Bowling Green State University for all 4 years, graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree with a concentration in two-dimensional arts, a focus in drawing and painting, and a minor in arts management, which is like business for artists. After that, I didn't really get into the business until a year after I graduated college. I mean, during college in the summers, I would draw caricatures at Cedar Point, which was another like a step in the creative career. But after a point, I was like, you know what? I don't want to work at an amusement park anymore. So I left. And then my first comic that I started working on was Johnson and Sir. I started working on that in 2013. And Validation, I started working on that right around the same time as Johnson and Sir, and it's just been a steady stream of comics since then.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to ask you to explain what Johnson and Sir is and what validation is. Some people may not know.
Yeah.
I've read Johnson and Sir. I don't think I've read Validation. Is that a web comic?
Yes, both of these are web comics. I mean, Validation is, I'll get to that in a second. But Johnson and Sir is the story of two elf cops in Fantasyville that is both available to read online and in print. The print edition has some remastered artwork, although right now I actually have the book delisted. I just didn't feel comfortable with everything going on with Black Lives Matter and everything going on with discussions about police reforms. I didn't 100% feel comfortable having Johnson and Sir listed for sale while those discussions were going on, because it to me felt like I was profiting off of an idea of cops, even a fictitious parody of one. But so I pulled that off of my store. I mean, it's still available to read online, but I haven't monetized this site at all. So just full disclosure there, I wanted to make that apparent. But Validation is another webcomic that I'm still doing. And I'll get to that caveat in a second, but it's about a transgender girl named Allie and just her day-to-day life as a nerd. Like, there's segments where she goes to conventions. There's times where she talks about the comics community. There's times where she talks about playing board games with her friends, going to bars with another set of friends. Like, it's just the story of Allie. And that's what Validation is. Now, I have a little asterisk next to that because right now the website is down. And unfortunately, it's going to be down until we get a new look for it, because we want to revamp the Validation website so that you can read Validation, Tiny Unicorn, and some other spin-off comics that we have in the works. So right now, if you type in validationcomic.com, it'll redirect to the Patreon page for CB, the writer of the project. She writes, I illustrate it. There's story input that I give for the story, but she writes it, I draw it. We're hoping to also get Roxy Comics up on the website too. Now, the Roxy Comics are written and drawn by me. And the Roxy Comics are basically a spin-off of Validation, just focusing entirely on Roxy, the transgender roller derby girl. Like, that's me. Tiny Unicorn is another joint project that CB and I work on. She writes, I illustrate it. But like I said, the website's down temporarily until we get a redesign up, but we're hoping that with the redesign, it'll be a place where you can read all of the Validation related comics in one spot.
Is it for free?
For free, hopefully. That's something that CB and I are still working the details out on.
Are you ever going to print it?
Oh, we've talked about it. We wanted to wait on a print edition until Allie's character arc was complete, and we didn't feel like it was complete until strip number 511. This story is like 511 strips long. It's been serializing since 2013, twice a week. So yeah, up until this year we bumped it down to once a week, but still managed to get Allie's story told in like 511 or 512 comic strips, because this is a 3-panel comic. It's not a standard comic, it's just a comic strip. But we wanted to get it in print once Allie's story was complete. We've had Kickstarters before. Like, the first ever Kickstarter that I did for Validation was for a set of buttons for like punk jackets, like the pins, buttons, whatever you want to call them.
I think it may actually be in this bag right here.
It might be in that bag right there.
The one that got off of you.
Yep.
I'm not sure that's
yep, because yeah, the Kickstarter only lasted a week, but we ended up raising like 800% of the goal. So we printed up Validation buttons, Mr. Dino buttons, Tiny Unicorn buttons, a sketchbook, and I think like one other thing. It's been years since we ran this particular Kickstarter. So hold on a second. Hey. Sorry, my cat decided to scratch the wall really, really badly. She got the zoomies.
Oh.
Yeah, I brought my cat Bree. Huh?
She's probably scared of the strange voice she hears.
Nah, she just gets antsy. She gets the zoomies every once in a while. When I moved up here to my new apartment, I brought my cat Bree with me. My cat Scarlet stayed behind with my little sister Kia, but that's fine. Scarlet was always Kia's cat. But anyway, back to comics. The Kickstarter that I ran for Validation after the button one was to help fund the final arc for Validation. The name of that campaign was Validation's Final Push. And we raised enough to finally finish up the arc. So thank you, Kickstarter backers, for that. that helped a lot. You helped fund the comic up to comic strip number 511, and that's where we're ending it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but as far as a Kickstarter for validation in total, being in a book, we are working on putting the files together first. We have some printers in mind, but we want to put the files together first before we launch it on Kickstarter. So that may be a 2021 thing to watch out for.
I will get a copy.
Marvelous. I appreciate your support, my dude.
Okay.
I'll keep you posted whenever more stuff develops.
Well, the current strip you're working on that I get every, like once or twice a week on Patreon, the Jolly, I was going to say Jolly Rancher.
No, it's The Legend of Jamie Roberts.
The Legend of Jamie Roberts. I've been waiting for it to finish before I read it. And I didn't realize that you had published some books of him.
Yes. So The Legend of Jamie Roberts is, for folks who are watching who have no idea what this is, it's the story of a genderqueer pirate and their two best friends treasure hunting in a land full of dragons. So The Legend of Jamie Roberts is now partway through chapter 4, but chapters 1 and 2 are in print right now. I haven't put chapter 3 to print. My original plan was to launch a Kickstarter for it back in March or April, but then stuff happened. So it's just on pause. I'm thinking when/if I do run a campaign for Jamie Roberts to get it into print, I'm just going to do a trade paperback with chapters 1, 2, and 3 in it, with some bonus material that's not on the website.
And I'll just wait for that one.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I'll keep you posted when I have the Kickstarter campaign for that one as well, because I don't know when exactly I'll be launching that one. No dates decided yet.
So,
yes.
I was going to ask, where can people find your work right now?
So people can find my work. The most direct way would be going to kelcicrawford.com. So that's KELCID Crawford.com, because that has my links for my webcomics, all of my portfolio art, and some other links listed on there. I also have a link tree that has all of my links. So that would be at linktr.ee/KelciD, and that's Kelci spelled KELCI.
I noticed when we're at conventions, you have a group of people who follow you around.
Will follow me around even though I'm in one spot.
You have your fans. And I also noticed that you make your, what do you call them? Your prints. They're very popular with the crowd.
Well,
I like your dragons and stuff like that. Well, you don't think they are? That's all I see a lot of people buying are your prints.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because the most popular things that people buy are my comics and my mini comics. The prints are like the third most popular sales wise. I mean, people pick up and look at the prints because they're the most obvious thing on the table, but people overwhelmingly buy more comics and mini comics off of me at my table.
And at conventions, how have you, how can I put this? Because I know you've done the Flaming River. Okay. And that's
I have
more,
mixed feelings about that one.
Yeah, that's more our crowd. But at, what would you call, more commercial, I don't even want to say commercial. I'm really not
mainstream.
Mainstream, maybe. That seems like a knock on you, because you are mainstream in a way. Your work,
Kind of.
well, it is. It's very animation. It looks like animation, in my opinion. So it is what a lot of people would stop and say, well, let me look at this, because that's what they do. I watch your table because you're usually right next to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's no accident either.
yeah. And how has the audience at one kind of convention compared to another reacted to your work?
That's a good question. I hadn't really thought about that too much. So the types of conventions and shows that I go to showcase my stuff are local appearances. So that's going to individual comic shops and setting up a table there for like a day for a special event, like local comic shop day, or like the comic shop that I would set up at the most, they would have special sales events like free graphic novel day or stuff like that. So those are the types of appearances that I would make. I would also go to just comic conventions, and those are things like Three Rivers Comic Con. I would even kind of lump in the indie cons into that category. Awesome Con is another one I would lump into that category. So like just conventions, like comic conventions. And then the other shows that I would end up going to would be zine fests. Zine fests are an entirely different beast. Yeah. Okay, so going through my list again, because there's comic shop, there's like local appearances, comic conventions, and zine fests. Within comic conventions, there's like the indie comic scene, the mainstream comic scene, and then there's the pop culture scene. The pop culture scene is usually the large shows like Awesome Con. Like the year that I went to Awesome Con, attendance was like 77,000 or something really high like that. Yeah. My first ever convention appearance selling my stuff was actually Phoenix Comic Con, back when it was called Phoenix Comic Con. It has changed its name like 7 times between 2013 and now, but that was my first convention appearance. And that's more of a pop culture thing. Anime conventions, they are an entirely separate beast.
Yeah.
They're entirely separate from local appearances, comic cons, and zine fests. Anime conventions are their own thing. I will say, my stuff catches a lot more attention at anime conventions, largely because I feel like I'm one of the few people there that sells comics. Because usually at an anime convention, people are selling prints and buttons and things that you can tack onto backpacks to show your love for a particular fandom. Like seeing an independent creator showcasing their stuff is, I'm not going to say a rare unicorn, it's just not as common. Whereas at like a comic convention like Three Rivers Comic Con, that's kind of what's expected. They expect creators to be there and showcase their independently published comics. Not so much prints. Like prints are a thing, but they're not quite as ubiquitous as indie books or people showing off their books that they got published with a big publisher at some point. Local appearances, I love making local appearances because people love supporting local artists. Like, it's the people who end up staying at my table for longer than 2 minutes are like, oh my God, you're local? Heck yeah, I want to support you. And they'll like get something, even if it's just a little thing like a mini comic or a button. Zine fests, people are more looking for information on a topic that they're interested in.
Okay.
So zine fests are basically for punks who like to read. It's the best way to sum up a zine fest feel. And it really, zines they're kind of like independently published comics, except way more basic. Like zines are usually something that you like take to a photocopier and you print it up that way. At a zine fest, there's not as much emphasis on making a profit off of the things that you have at your table. Like if you make a profit, neat, but there's a reason that tables tend to be super cheap at zine fests, and that's because people don't anticipate you making a lot of money there. They anticipate you trading your stuff with your neighbors, or because it's a very punk scene, and there are some zine fests that are deliberately anarchic, or what's the word, anarchist. They're deliberately anarchist. They're like, there were some zine fests that are like, no cash exchanges allowed. I have not attended very many of those, but they exist. They exist. But a lot of zine fests are more interested in information exchange than they are in commercialization. The other shows that I've listed are more interested in the commercialization of things.
Oh.
And because of that, it, like the audience, it, depending on the show, it attracts a particular kind of audience.
Very informative.
What was that?
They're very informative.
Very informative.
So is there anything you'll be working on next year that we should know about, or are you just going to finish up with what you're working on now?
You know, it's funny that you asked that, because I hadn't really thought into 2021 until you asked me that question just now. I've just been working on what's in front of me right now, but I will say, just continuing working on the Legend of Jamie Roberts. That's one of my big keys that I want to work on in 2021. The other one is getting validation to print, and a lot of my 2021 goals are also tied up with Never Ending, and the app that we're developing with Never Ending, because like, yes, I'm the character designer, but we are developing a character builder app and a scenes builder app, because what we want this app to do is we want it to make it easier for people to create their own characters and tell their own stories. And with that, the tools that Never Ending is building, sorry, I'm situated next to a highway. But the tools that we have with Never Ending, we want to make it easier for people to build their characters and then animate them in short scenes to tell the story that you want to tell. So we're working on that. We're putting everything together. We're hoping to launch the beta like at the end of this month, the beginning of next month. And we're just going to be adding more material going into 2021. So working with Never Ending, working on the Legend of Jamie Roberts. I'm hoping to get the validation website redesign up by 2021 so that everybody can read Validation and Tiny Unicorn and Mr. Dino Comics and all the other spin-offs that we have. We have so many spin-offs, and we have so many more slated in the works. And also, I'll go ahead and throw this out there. So with Fantasyville Productions, the company that I'm running, I want to help publish books that are not just mine, but are also other people's works that I enjoy reading and that I believe in. With that said, I'm working with a writer and an editor right now to put together a compilation of short stories by one author who I really, really dig. And we're hoping to get that book ready for small press publication before the holiday shopping season hits.
Oh, very busy.
So
You're very busy.
I keep myself busy. Kind of have to whenever you like work from home.
Yeah. Okay. Any last words? Because, like I said, short and sweet. Any last words you would like to leave us with?
I mean, for any new updates and developments, just keep up with me at kelcicrawford.com. I'm also on Instagram. Instagram is now my social media platform of choice at the moment. I will say I left Facebook back in April, and I'm so glad that I did. Like, I have just felt an enormous weight lifted off my shoulders after I left Facebook. But I'm still on Instagram. So I'm on Instagram at Kelci D. Crawford if you would like to follow me.
I do.
Like, yeah. And if you would like to keep up with other means, like I have an email newsletter, you can just go to linktr.ee/KelciD and check all of my other links there. There's also a link for signing up for my email newsletter. I only send out once a week to let people know what's going on, the new updates and all that stuff.
Oh, I just want to add that I've been enjoying your backgrounds in your latest strip. I think they're beautiful. The cityscapes and all that, I think they're very good.
Oh, thank you.
Like I said, I'm waiting for it to be done so I can read it because I hate waiting.
You're probably going to be waiting for a little while because The Legend of Jamie Roberts is going to be a long one. Like I have the story outlined up to 20 chapters.
Okay.
It's a beast.
Wow. If you decide you're going to do the 3-volume one, I'll read it. I'll read it then.
Okay, cool. That sounds like a plan to me.
So I have a big chunk of it already read.
Yeah. The only other thing to add is just my catchphrase, because I like throwing out my catchphrase because it's sincere. The catchphrase being, "You are awesome."
Thank you. Thank you for doing this interview. Everyone, Kelci Crawford, see her online at Kelci Crawford, KelciDCrawford.com.
Correct.
Yeah. Most people forget that D. Don't forget the D. Okay.
It's very important you remember the D.
Very important. Okay.
Innuendo.
Okay.